When it comes to how we interact with the world, what exactly is the difference between reacting and responding? They kind of sound like the same thing, don't they? But in reality, there's a huge difference between them. And I want to lay that out for you now so that you can understand the difference between the two and take back control of your experience. I'm Nicola, and my passion is helping parents and not yet parents deal with their stuff so they don't pass it on to their kids and repeat the cycle. And I've been dealing with my patterns of pain for over 25 years. You might see the difference between reacting and responding as purely semantics, just, fancy definitions of different words. And this is just my opinion, so you may disagree with me, and if you do, let me know in the comments. But whatever you want to label these actions, there are two different ways that you can act in situations, and there is a world of difference between them. Firstly, reacting. To me, this is the actions you take in a situation that are immediate, unthinking, almost instinctive. They happen suddenly without your awareness, and they're a click-whir automatic type action, to quote Maxwell Maltz from Psycho-Cybernetics. They just happen like a tape that plays in reaction to something. They're not something you're in conscious control of. It's really just happening without you actively participating in what's going on. It is an immediate instinctive reaction. For example, let's say someone breaks a plate near you. You might immediately switch into an angry or frightened state of mind. That's a reaction. Or maybe you're in a conversation that's seemingly innocuous and suddenly you find yourself anxious. That's a reaction. Or maybe you're working under stress and then you find yourself shutting down. That's a reaction. All of these things are happening without your conscious choice or control. And a lot of the time, they're not especially helpful reactions either. So these reactions are not something that you're choosing to experience. I feel like they're just happening to you. And if you struggle to regulate yourself in situations where you are triggered like this, I've got a whole guide with quick ways that you can self-regulate when you are in these kinds of situations that you might want to download. But why does the act of reacting matter so much? Well, what tends to happen is that the people who are closest to us, the ones that we care the most about, tend to be the ones who trigger us the most, who create these reactions. And when we have these unthinking automatic reactions, sometimes we can say or do things that we regret. We might make decisions in the heat of the moment that we later come to realize weren't in our best interests. We might act out of alignment with what's most important to us. Ultimately, we're doing things that are not what we have said or decided that we want to experience. We're acting contrary to our best interests and to what we want to get out of life. And so it's important that we then learn the alternate action, which is to respond. When we respond to things, we take the time, we consider our options, we do what we need to think about, okay, what is really going on here? How do I want to act in this situation? We're deliberate, we're careful, we're considered, and we're aligned with our values in the moment and with the actions that we take in response. For example, maybe you're working on an important project at work and you find out that a key delivery has been delayed. Instead of reacting and switching immediately into panic mode, you take a moment, you consider your options, and then you start working on Plan B, a strategy to address the delays, the issues that this delay is going to cause. Or maybe a child comes to you and confesses that they've broken some house rule. Instead of immediately swinging in to an angry tirade, you instead notice the emotions that are coming up in you. You take a break to get those under control, and then you come back and re-engage when you're ready to have a constructive conversation and figure out how to move forward with this situation. So how do you respond instead of reacting? Well, the first and most important part of this process is to notice when you're about to react so that you can stop it. You need to catch that reaction before it gets into full swing so that you can stop it in its tracks, literally. Because once it gets going, it can be pretty hard to stop. So noticing it and stopping it is absolutely key. And it can be the most challenging piece of this, because you are used to doing this on automatic pilot. The emotions that well up can be very strong and very compelling. And sometimes you just have to do whatever it takes to not do anything at that point. I have found in situations where the best thing I can do is just shut my mouth. I'm in full swing and suddenly I realize I'm reacting and I just stop. Just nothing, don't say anything. It feels weird and every part of you wants to keep going, but stopping that initial reaction is absolutely key. And then once you've stopped that, you can have a moment to breathe, to actually have that moment to center yourself, to ground yourself, which really just means bringing you back to the present moment so you're fully aware of what's actually going on around you right now, so that you can be present, you can create that space to step back and look at things slightly differently and settle your system. And I've got a whole video on my ABCD framework for managing your responses when you are triggered so that you don't react and you can respond instead. And then once you've stopped that response, stop that reaction, and you've settled yourself down, then you've got the opportunity to change the story that's going through your head. You can tell yourself different things, you can look at it differently, you can start to explore different ways to see what's going on, reframe the story, change the story so that you're thinking more consciously about what's going on. And then once you've done that, you're ready to actually choose your response, to choose to act differently in this situation, to actually intentionally do this or that because you know that's what's going to lead to the best possible outcome. You can problem solve, you can start to come up with ways either on your own or with the other people involved, and you can communicate more effectively with those people. So that's the difference, and how you can get from responding to reacting, and stopping that initial reaction is absolutely key. But then you need to go through that process of settling and recentering so that you can be intentional and deliberate about what you do next. As an exercise, I like the idea of sitting in a busy place like a shopping centre or a playground where there's a lot going on, or maybe going for a ride on public transport, or perhaps an amusement park ride. It doesn't really matter. It just needs to be a place where there's a lot going on, a lot of things happening around you, a lot of noise, so that you can sit there and practice not reacting. So you listen and you don't react. You might have your eyes open for extra challenge, eyes closed if need be, but no matter what happens around you, you don't look, you don't engage. This could be tricky, but it can really help to give you the skill to strengthen that muscle of not reacting and instead controlling your response. I used to do this at school in the classroom. It used to drive me nuts when someone would come in late and make a big noise and everyone would turn their heads to look at them. It just seemed so unthinking. So I decided in that moment I was not going to do that. Instead, when someone came in like that, I was not going to look at them. I was going to keep my head front and center, my focus on what we were doing previously, and completely ignore their interruption. And that was a really useful skill. It wasn't easy, but it was a useful skill to develop, to understand that I could control my reactions. I didn't need to turn my head and look like everyone else was doing. And so by doing that, by practicing that skill of interrupting, giving yourself that space, that time, allowing yourself the opportunity to reframe and choose your response instead of just reacting automatically, you get to decide how you behave in situations. You're taking back control of your experience. One of the other practices I found incredibly helpful for interrupting that instinctive and thinking reaction to things is meditation. And I've got a guide with 10 different meditation techniques that you might want to download so that you can try out these techniques and see which ones work for you to help you settle your mind down and take back control. And if you'd like to understand my ABCD framework that can help you when you do get triggered and you're reacting to something like this, watch this video next. And I'll see you in the next one.